Well, thanks so much for having us. It's great to be back at Fintech Week, and I've got a great panel, and I'd like to invite them all up to the stage now and just take their seats. I'll give a quick introduction to the panel, but first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about mass adoption, because we're talking about mass adoption of new technologies in general, Fintech in particular, but also within that, blockchain and cryptocurrency. And you may hear quite a bit about that because I think a lot of the people on this panel are involved in blockchain or cryptocurrency in some way, but not just about those things. So one of the things I've been doing for the last few years is running a company called Unblocked. And the reason for calling it Unblocked is that it was very difficult for people to get their head around a lot of the jargon, get their head around the concepts involved in blockchain and cryptocurrency in fintech more broadly. So hopefully we're going to hear a lot of good ideas from this group. They're all in some way storytellers or community builders or accelerators of technologies. So I'd just like to take my seat and I can start to tell you a little bit more about the group. So first of all, welcome to all my panel. I'm going to just run down and give you a quick introduction to each of them. So on my left, we have Eva Lavrova. She's the founder and CEO of Decrypto, and she's been listed as one of the top 10 women in crypto. Next to her, we have Nathan Leung, who's a filmmaker at Altcoin Buzz and has been involved in a lot of big-hitting documentaries and other film and TV projects. So he really knows how to get the word out to large audiences and teach about things that maybe are not common knowledge among the general public. Then we have my good friend Alice Lidkova, who's the co-founder of New Economies. Alice runs a fantastic show at the London Stock Exchange where she interviews people in what they're doing in fintech and blockchain more broadly, and I'm very happy to have been on her show, and I hope there'll be other people in the audience who will go on it in the future. And then last but not least, we have Cristiana Tavares, and she's the Global Strategy Director of Maker Wonder Space, and she's also doing a lot of work accelerating new technologies in terms of both helping with the tech and also with the financing of new projects. So first of all, welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to start by going down and just asking each of you what constitutes mass adoption, because mass adoption is one of those things we talk about, going mainstream mass adoption. What does that really mean when it comes to fintech? What constitutes mass adoption, do you think?
I could start.
Yeah.
So for me, mass adoption is where accept new technologies on all levels. So it's people and huge organization, corporation, the government.
So once everybody is using it,
Yes,
not just
yes.
companies or governments, but individual users on the ground.
Yeah.
For me, I would say if my family started using it, my parents aren't very tech savvy, so, or if grandmas or aunts and uncles start using it, I would definitely say that's mass adoption. Yeah.
I would say mass adoption is when people are actually reading your post and sharing your posts and reaching out to hear your story and as they want to relate to your experiences. And like what you've mentioned is having your grandmother using your product, because your raving fans are ultimately first your friends and family and your business partners as well and your team. And the other is making sure to listen to what they're saying and what people want, because as a business owner, you should probably give people what they want. So.
Yes, that's a good idea. So mass adoption. I would say when it's not a thought anymore, when it's not a question anymore. What's blockchain? What's Bitcoin? What's all these things, right?
Automatic, right?
Right, where it's so, I was present when only universities were allowed to use Facebook, right? So it was a new thing, and we were messaging people, and it was cool, and now everybody uses it, right? Now it's just, okay, message me on Facebook, or, so that's what, for me, that's what mass adoption is, when it's normal. What Diners International Club card was strange. Why are we using it? Why don't we use cash? Where's the money coming from? A magical wire in the sky, right? Now, of course, just swipe your card, right? So it's easy, it's functional, and it's a no-brainer.
Cool.
That's when mass adoption, that's the feeling we should be getting when mass adoption's actually in place.
So it's intuitive in the sense
Yeah,
that
Yes.
there's no question
it becomes
anymore.
a verb, I'm going to Facebook you, I'm going to
Yeah.
blockchain you, whatever it is, I'm
I'm
going
gonna
to
chain
crypto
you up.
you, we're going to start using this as a verb, and then suddenly
Right.
everyone
When it's
everyone
used as a
knows what it
verb,
is.
we're good, we're golden.
And so where do you think we are now in terms of mass adoption? Maybe we'll come back down this way.
Sure.
Where do you think we're getting traction in terms of people using new technologies? I mean, this is a whole set of technologies. Often it's the interaction between some of these technologies working together. But where do you think we are in terms of the kind of the fourth industrial revolution? How we
Right. I think we'd be back in the dinosaur ages, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I just honestly, so I've been 100% in, right, past 2 years, and it's just there's a big divide between infrastructure building and growth and creating products for real humans to use in the market today. So there's a gap between the market reality and the dream of what this technology could do, maybe the idealism. So I believe that is a huge chasm that we need to cross, and I think it's slowly getting there, and that's partly why I do what I do.
I would say that we haven't yet reached mass adoption, not even cryptocurrencies or even blockchain technologies, because we still live, even though our world is digital and hyper-connected, we still live in silos, and the technologists and regulators don't speak the same language. So if they don't speak the same language, how should we get them into this to share the table or to share a meal? We first have to understand the translation of the technology before we can understand the translation of the legal codes. And one way to bridge those two worlds is through storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's something that we all look for is how do we first translate the technology and then build a story that's inspiring and not threatening, and it really inspire users.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that before Nathan comes in, I think that's one of the reasons why the Facebook Libre development is so interesting, because what starts is that you're very skeptical. So this happened to me with Bitcoin. I'm extremely skeptical. I don't want to use this weird cryptocurrency thing, whatever it is. And then I'm scared. So I'm thinking, well, I don't really want to admit that I don't know what it is, and I don't know what the implications of it are for society or for me. And then education comes because you get curious, and then you start to really understand it, and then you start to love it, and then you start to tell other people about it. So you go through these kind of stages of storytelling.
Yeah.
For me, I would say fintech is closer than blockchain and crypto is to mass adoption, simply because on my end, we're starting to do a lot more internet commercials. The usage is a lot more online. A lot more Facebook commercials are coming in, a lot of 15-second, 30-second, Snapchat commercials. And in Los Angeles, Snapchat has taken over almost all of Venice, California. And just all these apps online and fintech related, Robinhood, different types of, banking online apps are now shooting a lot more commercials for internet on our end. So I would say that that's closer. For blockchain and crypto, we're pretty far out. I would say we're still, as much as I want to be closer, there's a few hurdles that we still have to overcome.
So I would say we are in the process of mass adoption. For example, I bought my airline tickets to London by Bitcoin, but only yeah, it's real. But I know only one airlines company who accepts this, so we need more companies. And also, for example, maybe you heard the news what Starbucks started to accept cryptocurrency, but at the same time, the service what they use convert cryptocurrency to dollar. So actually, mass adoption when the companies are ready to accept cryptocurrency.
I mean, that's actually moved quite slowly if you think back. I mean, I remember first getting Bitcoin in 2014, and there was pretty much nowhere. There was a couple of pubs and cafes in East London where you could buy a coffee or a beer with Bitcoin, but there aren't really that many merchants. And now people kind of say, well, why would you do it anyway? Because you bought the world's most expensive coffee because the price of Bitcoin shot up. So do you think that kind of payments is the way to get mass adoption, or do you think it's more about people holding Bitcoin as an investment, as a kind of a store of value rather than as a payment mechanism?
Well, first of all, of course, it's lack of regulation. This is why maybe company worried how to accept this. So and also,
So people are worried to become merchants because they're worried about the regulatory environment. They don't feel secure that they will be. Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of frauds, and also the Kaspersky, they published a report that only about 19 people bought the cryptocurrency before 2019, so it's not so much, not even the half of the population, so we
So
need
we're
more
a
time.
fifth of the way to mass adoption of Bitcoin.
Oh, yes.
19% of people, is that globally?
Yes.
Okay. And a few people have mentioned hurdles. So obviously regulatory hurdles is one. What about financing? I mean, going back to what you do, how easy is it for these fintech or blockchain startups to get access to capital and to accelerate what they're doing?
I mean, okay, so I'm a little bit tough with that topic, because I believe if you have a good team and if you're adding value to a market, you should be able to get funding. You know what I mean? So if you're having a hard time at getting funding, maybe you should go back to the drawing board and say, do you really have an addressable market? Who is your customer? And deep dive into those things, right? So that's part of what we do in our studio. But so I don't think the problem is getting funding. I think the problem is creating an actually valuable use case and application. And I'm sorry if that's rough, but I think it's the reality. So there's money, there's abundance to be found in this world, right? So I think it's really knowing how to place your value and creating products that the market needs.
I would also add, especially if you're in the U.S. jurisdiction, before I moved to London, I grew up in New York City and I spent some time there. The biggest challenge for startups in the fintech space there was to get the funding, because the investors they were risk averse. They didn't want to necessarily invest in a blockchain or fintech product because they weren't sure when they would get their return on investment, since the laws haven't been defined. And even with the Libra rollout, Congress has sent a letter to Zuckerberg to restrict the deployment of Libra. And so at the end of the day, yes, there's funding, there's abundance. It's really the timing.
Sure.
The timing has to.
That's a good point.
The timing has to be right, and who drives the education is, all of us that are entrepreneurial. In this room, we are entrepreneurs because we're here in an industry that is growing, that most of the world still doesn't know about. So actually, at the end of the day, it's really showing up, doing the work, partnering up, writing the stories, creating the videos, because it's just a snowball effect. People catch on, and then they start from one video and they're up to video 20 or article 20, and they want to know more.
And how important do you think that storytelling is for the policymakers? Because I came from a world where I worked a lot in public policy. I worked in various think tanks, and one of my issues was when I came into the Bitcoin blockchain world, people have incredibly short attention spans in general, but particularly policymakers, they don't have a lot of time, and yet you're trying to unpack all these different concepts and all these different bits of jargon. It's very hard for them to get their head around it, and it constantly morphs. So they get their head around Bitcoin, and you say, well, actually, it's not about Bitcoin, it's about blockchain, the technology, or then they get their head around that, and then actually it's about tokenization and the different types of tokens, and we're going to call them security tokens, or exchange tokens, or utility tokens, or, even for us, we're trying to struggling to keep up, and we're in the industry. So how can we expect policymakers to keep up with our story?
The video interviews, interview influencers and well-respected individuals such as yourself, Helen. That's one way to do it.
Thank you. Well, I do my best, but I also think, we do need the policymakers themselves to be storytellers to other peers of theirs. So we need to convince MPs or peers or people in government organizations around the world to get on board, and then get them to explain it to their peers, because they trust one another more than they trust someone from outside, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little too complicated right now for everybody to understand.
Facebook status, it's complicated in more ways than one.
Yeah. So, and it's tough because I've been talking to a lot of people. I've probably asked about 300 to 500 people about crypto in general, and the truth is they don't care yet. And as much as I try to tell them what it is, I'm like, you can do a multi-sig transaction. Isn't that cool? It's after 6 blocks of 10 minutes, it's
Multi-what?
perfect. They're just like, you lost me. So I think the key here is to keep it really simple.
Good.
Like really, really simple. It's digital cash. It's a store of value, and that's it.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
the way.
and analogies can be really good as well, breaking things down into examples that people are familiar with.
Means of exchange.
Yeah. There you go. That's good.
Coming back to the kind of, I guess, the bridge between the corporate world and the startup world, there's a sort of sometimes a view that these little startups are going to come along and they're going to decentralize everything and they're going to take over the world. But if we want mass adoption, should some of the startups and the entrepreneurs be partnering with larger companies? I mean, it's obviously a big discussion about the corporate involvement in this technology, but where do you see kind of that evolving in terms of tech startups? You mentioned you thought there should be stronger collaboration between banks and big financial institutions and technology startups.
Yeah, so I think what huge financial organization or banks should be to fire with startups. They should collaborate and suggest the clients the services what the people need, not just services what they want to sell them. So.
I mean, you see certainly in Asia, some of the big banks and institutions are very well advanced in terms of innovation labs, and they're really genuinely bringing in a lot of expertise and nurturing it. Maybe here we sort of have innovation labs that are sometimes a bit more tokenistic, to use a crypto-related pun. But do you think that we kind of build those bridges well enough? I mean, what do you think? You work with a lot of different investors and VCs and people who are trying to take these technologies to the wider market.
Yeah, so a big part of what we do is based in Asia, right? And if you see what's happening with WeChat, WhatsApp, right? So everything is online, everything is digital. And I think, 100%, you have to build a culture. You have to build the user base that it gets used to what you're trying to push out. And one of the things I always say is that centralization is not a bad word, right? So let's decentralize everything? No. Okay, I'm sorry, don't shoot me, no? But the thing is, we're dealing with mass amounts of human beings, and everyone is at a different level. So what is actually going to happen, in my opinion, is the Fidelities, the bigger corporations that can create a centralized system using these technologies to get people used to this mechanism is how we're going to get started. And having mass amounts of humans using it. And like he said, people don't care. I really want some soft serve frozen yogurt, and I want to pay for it, and I have only Bitcoin, right? Or I want ice cream, and I want to pay for it easily. I don't care which blockchain it's on. I don't care, which transaction in the back end. I don't care. I just want get my ice cream and eat it with my cell phone. Okay, sprinkles too. You know what I mean? So they don't need to know. They just want to get what they need. And what do they need? That's what we have to assess and make products that are market ready today.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from the audience? We've got a couple of minutes. Anyone got an idea of where they think we are with mass adoption or how we could accelerate it further?
There's a hand back there.
Someone's coming with a microphone, if you just hang on.
I would have thought with cryptocurrency, one of the obstacles to mass adoption is the difficulty of establishing what the value is. It's so fluctuating and so unstable. And ultimately, you're always referring to fiat. So you might as well stay in fiat.
Yeah. So what about volatility? I mean, we're just specifically talking about cryptocurrency now, but one of the things that Facebook has proposed is the sort of backing of a stable coin, so a currency that's based on other currencies in order to make it stable. So you can do payments like pay for your coffee that you were talking about, rather than having something that wildly fluctuates in value. Just maybe a quick closing comment on that, because we only have 2.5 minutes.
Cool.
So Eva, do you want to comment on that? On volatility, do you think that it's Bitcoin, or is it Libra coin, or is it some other currency that's more stable that will help us to pay for everything in crypto?
It's common problem to all cryptocurrencies. But I don't know. Maybe it's we can change later this problem. So
Just something simple that would allow people to onboard, maybe. I mean, that's one of the interesting things about the Facebook idea, is that it'd be very, very simple user interface, because actually it's not that easy to get Bitcoin. I mean, it is and it isn't, but you've got to have a wallet, then you've got to exchange it, then you've got to do all these things, as the lady said. So if it's just one click and I can, like Amazon one click, I can get my book, I can get my cryptocurrency, I'm going to be much more likely to use it, I guess.
I think, well, it also...
Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's something that's simple for people to use.
Yes, I mean, again, when we started talking about blockchain, and then we've ended the panel talking about cryptocurrencies, and I think that those two worlds are not even connected. So if you're just going to focus on the cryptocurrency talk, there's volatility, there's fear. If you're going to talk about blockchain, fintech, your mind shifts to the opportunity, because you're creating a solution for enterprise. You're building an infrastructure that may or may not have anything to do with cryptocurrency. So I guess the first question to ask yourself is, what drives you to the industry? Is it the crypto, or is it the blockchain? Is it the hen, or is it the eggs? I mean, so make that distinction, and then you will adjust that with your risk, and you'll either invest large sums of money or invest in the resources like knowledge to build something, or you're just there to play a little. It's like gambling. Yeah. So how much are you willing to gamble? I guess anything in life.
I would say it's a very good question, because as an investor, you do want low risk, and I do feel like the volatility is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's a great question, and that's probably one of the biggest barriers to mass adoption is the volatility. And Facebook Libra, they're coming out with a stablecoin, which is getting a lot of hate right now, but I feel like it's a $2.5 billion industry, and it's a digital asset that will eventually lead to people understanding more about cryptocurrency. As soon as you get some Libra, then you're going to figure out, what's Bitcoin.
Can we just go back to questions? Robert Olson, I've got a
We're coming to the end of time, so make it a quick one, if you can. Okay,
Well,
go ahead.
A couple of things about the adoption. There is one way to spend your crypto. It's kind of like a stepping stone, but it's not bad for right now, and that's with some of these debit cards.
Yeah.
So the big one at the moment is token.com, tokencard.io.
Yeah.
So Ethereum ERC20 tokens. So if you have some of these tokens and you want to buy your ice cream, but the shop doesn't take it, or the guy in the van doesn't take it, you can tap your card. Most people have contactless.
Yeah.
And the other guy, Chad this morning, I think it was Chad, he was saying that they onboard 12,000 users on a bad day, so into Revolut, and one tap, you can get the top cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a couple of others.
I mean, that raises a good point, because debit cards, this is where you get these gulfs, so people, sort of Bitcoin believers would say, why do you need a debit card? Surely that's, taking away the whole point of cryptocurrency. You don't need to have this bit of plastic that links to the traditional financial system. We just want everybody transacting online, peer-to-peer, and we don't want this kind of debit card, because that's the old financial system. But for the user, that's a very easy mechanism that they know, that's a bridge, that's, something they're familiar with.
We have to have that. I mean, okay, talk to me about QR codes. That's maybe a little outdated. But NFC, contactless payments, I mean, I believe that's the main way we're going to get people to actually be using it. And about the volatility issue, I'm not asking everyone to be a day trader. I don't even want to be a day trader. Okay? I'm just trying to hodl, gang, So we're not asking that. We're asking, expand your mind to transact digitally. That's all. You can get your fiat at the end if you want, honey, But for now, we are going to, this is how we go step one. Because basically, like, one of the companies I love is eToro. Very simple, great branding, great marketing, trade like Bob, right? So let's get you to transact digitally, get your fiat or not. Then let's teach you, okay, guess what? You could get your fiat, but what if you kept your Bitcoin and that's going to increase 5% today and tomorrow and the next hour, right? How about we have to, and I think all of this revolves around, okay, fintech is not adopted, right? But that's one thing is, we don't even have finance education in our systems.
That's true.
Oh, did I ever learn how to budget? Or no, when I got to college, they were giving me free Frisbees for opening up credit cards, right? So
wow.
I like that Frisbee too. So I happily accepted a Frisbee and all these things, and with those credit card companies coming to me, trying to get me in debt, right, for their own purposes. And this is, back to the point, why are we even doing this
So
to empower
youth,
people,
I mean,
right?
youth education, that's a really good point, because eToro is a very interesting example. First of all, I remember just being so shocked when I walked through local tube station that's not even in zone 1 or zone 2, and I saw the entire kind of barrier plastered with eToro advertising, and I thought, I remember
Yeah.
when I met the founder of that company 5 years ago, and I never would have thought I would have seen his logo all over the tube station. And secondly, my daughter, who's 7, came to me, and just because something popped up on a little app or something she was doing, or YouTube, she said, "What's eToro?" So, they're getting to the 7-year-olds, and they're asking the
Where's that?
questions.
Yeah.
So should we be doing more to educate young people about these technologies? Because this is their future. This is the jobs of the future. These are the things they're going to be using. And you're absolutely right. In the school system, we don't do anything that relates to finance. We also don't really teach much about how the political system works either. But
Or
that's
technology.
another
Or
story.
anything important to life, yeah. Yeah, no,
I mean, Alice is a
believe it.
storyteller. What do you think about getting your stories out to young people? How would you go about teaching crypto to a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old?
That's a good one, Helen. How do you do it? You have a 7-year-old.
I feel like
Odd.
through animation, trying to
Yes.
be like the Disney or like the Mickey Mouse of
Gamify.
Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Sesame Street of crypto.
Yes.
Just because a lot of times, a lot of my friends a little bit younger than me, they think that a credit card is free money. They just go open up all these credit cards. Look at all this free money. I'm $100,000 in debt, and they have no idea how money works. They don't know the properties, and it's people my age, and even people my age are swimming in debt in the States right now. It's a pretty big problem.
Yeah.
And so if they don't even understand money, how are they going to understand crypto,
They can
right?
get more into debt by using their savings to buy cryptocurrency and watching the value plummet. Yes, in fact, I heard somebody from Pixby talking at our Women in Blockchain meetup last week, and thought it was a really great idea to get kids understanding crypto and incentivizing them to do jobs around the house, which is also very important.
Nice.
As a mother of 2, I'm into this idea of incentivization of household jobs using micro amounts of cryptocurrency. So anything like that, I think, that tells a story in a fun way is brilliant.
And kids are smart, Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. I feel like
Yeah.
they can pick it up
Yeah.
quicker than we can.
Yeah.
So.
Helen, there's one more question up the back.
I'd just like to thank you for letting me ask questions. In order to get people to adopt cryptocurrency, or should I say it more generally, crypto tokens, instead of just not talk about how we just use it in terms of spending money, we could always talk about how we could use them to check to see if some luxury item or artwork is authentic or not, like show other use cases. If we talk about other use cases, would it drive adoption?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I guess we're talking here more about blockchain and about the properties of blockchain allowing us to keep track of the assets that we own and being more transparent about who owns what and where the asset comes from. So you could think of a diamond or a piece of art or a property that was tokenized. So, I guess at the moment that's limited to a small number of people. Generally, the projects that have been limited in scale, or they've been for wealthy investors wanting to tokenize a luxury property. But if that was to escalate, could you see mass adoption coming through things like fractionalized ownership of work of art or a house or something like that?
I would say definitely through smart contracts. It's still a little bit tough to understand, but just imagine if you had a smart home, right? And the doors stay locked if you don't pay rent. And if you pay rent, doors unlocked. That's a little dark, actually.
It's quite Orwellian.
Notice first. Yeah.
But it's all about incentives, right? If you can't get into your house, you'd be quite keen to pay the rent. You look skeptical, Christy, about fractionalized ownership.
Fractionalize everything. Just fractionalize your life. I don't know. You know what? It's just, my 100%, if I can leave with anything, is add value and market reality. What is useful today? Are big investors of art tokenizing it? Are they buying? No, don't keep your dreams and everything, right? And work on it on the back end. But I think it's fine to have different facets and build in different venues. I think, yes, diversify, but I don't think that's the route to mass adoption. I think what humans are using today, what is the problem that we can solve today? That's the market reality, and let's build products for that to lead into further diversification.
Okay. So if there's one thing that each of you could do to increase mass adoption, if you had like a wish list, what would it be?
Attract more women.
Attract more women into the industry, yeah. Well, we've done well today. We've got, at least 4 of us on the panel, so we're doing all right. That's more unusual. I was on a Women in Blockchain panel last year, but this is a panel not about women in blockchain that has women in blockchain on it. So we're making progress. Nathan?
I would say the one thing to draw mass adoption, right? Is that the question?
Yeah, what's on your wish list if you want to get mass adoption? What's the one thing that you would hope for?
People just to give it a chance and to use it. You know, something that's out there would be maybe a good dApp, a good decentralized app that people can use instead of not just fake volume, not just, you know, these protocols that aren't really launching or just for the money. Good user interface, good user experience, and simple. I always say simple because it's very complicated. So just people to give it a chance and just to get rid of all the scams out there because it's not a good look right now. But yeah, that's it.
Get together the world's most smartest people into one room to solve the problem of hacking, for example, your Bitcoin, who recovers the loss. And I think that's the key to mass adoption is how do you solve the hacking issue? Yeah, and then mass adoption is much easier.
So my wish list. I would like to give a challenge to myself and my team and everyone in this room that for next year, FinTech Week, we will have onboarded a bunch of merchants right here locally in London, and that we will be able to give that list of merchants and say, everybody go spend digitally, get your ice cream. So that's my wish list
and
for
your
next year.
crypto sprinkles on the top.
And put your sprinkles on the top. Yes, that's my wish for next year.
So swipe.
Yes, swipe, NFCs, whatever, even QR codes. And if anyone in this room wants to help out and be in part of that dialogue, I'm happy to chat after.
Okay, thank you. Blockchain Week next year in London. We're going to have crypto ice cream.